My goal is to be, I know you have to be on your way by 10:30, and I will finish in plenty of time for you to do that. Let me just very quickly tell you quickly about myself, and then we'll go forward. And I know some of you coming in, you look at the board and you see something that says social media, and you have in your mind, I am certain that you know way more about it than I do. And in some aspects that is true. But I think what we're going to be able to do is just kind of link together things that you just need to be aware of, things you watch maybe on the news, things that you see that happen. But so we're going to look at a couple things that's happened in other states, but then I'm going to, at the end of it, I'm going to tell you a story that happened through social media that happened locally that we dealt with. So it's not something that so I don't believe, the Coleman Police Department doesn't believe it's a bad thing. We actually use it. Ourselves inside the police department use social media, but the thing is you have to be careful because there are things out there that can go wrong if you use it incorrectly. Backing up just a little bit about myself, I've worked at the city police department for about 23 years. I started out on patrol, and for some reason, I don't know, I guess just by the grace of God, over the years, I've made it to now to where I got appointed a couple of years ago, or a year and a half ago, to the job of assistant police chief. So that's where I am now. The school called and asked if we could provide someone to come and talk, and we were more than happy to do that. So let me just start out by saying this. I want you to understand the police department is, some of you, and rightfully so, some of you, maybe the police department, if you had to put us in, we wouldn't fit into your top 10 friends list, and I understand that, because sometimes maybe you view the police department as maybe your enemy, or the police department is somebody that don't like you. Let me assure you that that's not the case. We are really a more friendly department. If you have problems inside the department, many of you I know, some of you I know, if you have a problem inside our department, let me assure you, we employ about 70 or so people inside the Coleman Police Department, and I have always been somebody who's just completely and totally honest with you. Out of that 70 employees, we have 2 or 3 or 4, maybe even 5 that is not model employees. So if we have somebody that you feel does you wrong, you feel free to come see me or call me, and I will deal with it appropriately. We do not mind sending our own folks when they mess up. Again, so if we've done something, we do something that's incorrect, then you let us know. But now let me tell you what that does not mean. That does not mean if your mufflers are too loud and you get a ticket for it, you cannot come and say, hey, they were mean to me because they gave me a ticket for my mufflers being too loud. If they're too loud, they're too loud. All right? And there's just a law that's out there, and it kind of tells what is and what is not legal. So we do something wrong, you come tell us, and I will do my very best to take care of it. But if you do something wrong, my advice is go pay the ticket, and don't come complain to me about something you did wrong. So we'll leave it at that. Social media. Let me just tell you a couple things. We're going to really look at 3 things. We're going to look at the death of a young lady by the name of Ashley Hall. You're going to watch here in just a couple of minutes. You're going to watch 2 videos that's going to go back to back. You have to really pay attention because they have an accent, so you've got to pay attention to what they're saying. But here's what happened. Ashley Hall, 17 years old. On Facebook, she met who she thought was her boyfriend. He posted a picture of himself, and he apparently was supposed to be a stunning 16-year-old athlete in high school. So she becomes friends with him on Facebook. They end up meeting one another. After chatting for just a short period of time, listen to me, only on Facebook. They had never met each other in person. It is they fell in love on Facebook. Now, to me, that's a little bit, she's passed away, so, but the truth is that's still a little bit ridiculous. I'm not really sure how you fall in love with a picture, but somehow she managed to do that. When she met this 16-year-old high school athlete, it really turned out to be a 32-year-old ugly man. That 32-year-old ugly man, his intentions were not good. The end of the day, after things was over, she ends up leaving her school, skipping school, which you shouldn't do, skipping school, so mom doesn't know she's gone. But she meets him that morning, is the way the story reads. He takes her, ends up tying her hands, tying her feet, and he rapes her, and he kills her, and he throws her out on the side of the road. Now, back up just a little bit, okay? When she met him on Facebook, she thought she was meeting, again, a 16-year-old high school man. She had no clue she was meeting a 32-year-old murderer. That night, at 10 o'clock, the police stopped him for not having a tag light, something very simple. Come to find out, he didn't have insurance on his vehicle. Where that is, that's a jailable offense if you don't have insurance on your car. So the police take him to jail. When they get him to jail, he says this: I have something I need to tell someone. And said, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to a detective or an investigator. They say, fine, we'll get somebody for you to talk to. Carry him in the back, and he says, I just killed someone. And I want to take you to where I dumped her body. I threw her body out. And so that's what he does. He takes the police back. The police then at 10:30 at night, 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night, go and tell mom and dad that some strange man has came in, murdered your daughter, and has raped her and dumped her body out on the side of the road. The police then go and pull the young lady's, the young girl's computer, pull the computer, and find out the whole relationship lasted less than a month, and they found every conversation that they had had on Facebook back and forth. Then it ended up they had text messaged one another. But understand this: that started out as a very simple, innocent appearing thing, and it ends up mom and dad has lost their daughter, and now there's a man serving time in prison. I'm going to go over with you as soon as we watch the two videos, just the sex offenders that we have. We're not going to talk about each one of them, but I'm just going to give you some numbers that you can look at so you understand this. Come to find out, that gentleman, here's the story. It says this: the killing raises serious questions on how effectively known sex offenders were being monitored. Because if you look at the whole story, that gentleman was a sex offender. He was a registered sex offender in the town that they lived in. I'll go ahead and tell you now. Inside Coleman County, we have 165 registered sex offenders. This gentleman's a registered sex offender. The family and the community is saying the police didn't do a very good job of monitoring him. Let me just say this about that. If your sex offenders don't tell the truth, you understand what I'm saying? We check on them. The law tells us to check on them. The law tells them to come tell us if they're moving. But understand this: registered sex offenders are who they are because they're not good people. So if you think they're going to follow every rule that you've laid before them, then that's not going to happen. So it really wasn't the issue to me that the police wasn't keeping up with him. It's just an error made by a young girl. So we're going to watch, again, two videos. You're going to watch the one. This is again, pay attention to it. It's the young girl that passed away. It's her daughter. And then you'll hear the police chief in this town react, and you have to pay attention to him as well. So watch that. They're both about 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll come back up. Then I'll come back up and we'll finish.
I am glad justice is being done for my daughter today, even though it's not enough. But at least he pleaded guilty, and he hasn't put me through a week of trial. Just put the message out that please, parents whose kids are on Facebook, please ask them to tell you who they're talking to. You just don't know who's behind that photo. Look what happened to my daughter.
Yeah, we don't want anybody else to go through what we've gone through, do we?
No, it's unimaginable what me and my family have gone through. I've got 3 other children that probably won't have a life now because I'll never ever keep my eye off them. I'd also like to say thank you to the community and to all my friends for the support that they have given me through this.
I'd like to take this opportunity to use Ashley's death to put a message out to the public about the dangers of using social networking sites. It's clear from our investigations that sexual predators are using these sites to meet, groom and target their next victims. And that's exactly what happened in the case with Ashley. Chapman's profile, as we saw, had a photograph of a fit, healthy young man, and that's who Ashley thought that she was going to meet. But we know, looking at Chapman's photograph, that it's a very, very different person that she went out there to meet. So my message is very, very simple to the public. Our message is, do not meet people that you've only met on social networking sites. But I'm also a realist. I know that people will still go on and do that. So there's preventative messages that you need to listen to. And that is, if you're going to meet someone, tell someone where you're going to meet them. Tell them who you're going to meet. And only meet them in very, very public places. And also, whenever possible, take someone else with you. Thank you.
I'm sure that the gentleman you just heard speak is a very intelligent guy, and I don't really want to down what he says, but I'm going to say that he says he's a realist. And he said you're going to meet people anyway. I'm going to say this. Apply the common sense that the good Lord gave you, and don't go meet people that you've never seen before. I mean, that you've only met on social media. Now, I will agree with him that things like that are going to take place no matter what we do, so to speak. Things are going to, people are going to meet people like that. Listen, I don't want you to believe, I don't want you to have a false sense of security by living in Coleman. We live in Coleman, which is a fairly safe place, but understand what I just told you. We have 165 registered sex offenders in Alabama. You can go to the Coleman Police Department's website, the Sheriff's Office, or the Attorney General's, and you can look at their picture, and you can look at the crime that they've committed, and you can look at where they committed that crime. You can look at the crime they committed, then you can go to the Code of Alabama and match that up and find out what they did in order to become a registered sex offender. And so you can understand, in the state of Alabama, there are 9,722 registered sex offenders. 9,722 registered sex offenders. Some people will say if you're a sex offender, and I'm not going to say that I disagree with this theory, unless some radical change happens in your life, you're always going to be a person with a problem, so to speak. You're always, it's not really something, again, unless a radical change happens, you don't get over being a sex offender. And when they release those people out of prison, and if you watch the news very much, we're going to fall right in line, sadly, with the state of California. California had a lawsuit that said they're holding too many people in prison. The prisons are overcrowded. The federal lawsuit took place, and they ended up saying you're going to have to release so many prisoners out of jail. Alabama, in the state of Alabama, and in general, we are like 145% capacity in our prison systems. They're not building new prison systems. So what does that tell you? We're going to have to fall in line with what the state of California did so soon. And I would say within the next year, you're going to see the same thing happen in Alabama. They're going to open the back door, so to speak, at the prison system, and we're going to be flooded with those people who still should be in prison. They're writing things down as what's a violent crime and what is not. They're going to say we're going to keep the violent criminals. This is another topic we could talk about a long time, but some things that they are calling violent or non-violent should be put in the violent category. But you're going to see that release, and listen, the 9,722 people that are in Alabama that are sex offenders, there is no way for me to believe that they don't get on Facebook and target high school people. They get on Facebook and target college people. And listen, you heard what the gentleman said, and from what I looked at yesterday, it's really, sex offenders they're running a business, so to speak. You heard him use the word, for over those periods of months, they groomed is the word, or over the month that they were there, they groomed that person. And so what that means basically is this: they get on there and they have a mindset to tell you whatever you need to be told to convince you that they're that 16-year-old stunning-looking young man. They understand what the end goal, this 32-year-old man understood at the end of the day, his goal was to rape and to kill that young lady. That's what he knew when he started having a conversation with her on Facebook. He knew that when he started. So the word grooming in that just simply means, tells you what you want to know. So when you get into an argument or you have a disagreement, because I know you don't argue with your parents, but when you have a disagreement with your parents, he was there saying, hey, I know exactly the right thing to say to this young lady. I'm going to tell them that her parents are unfair, that it's not really fair that they took her phone away, or it's not really fair that they grounded her or did whatever they did. He's going to tell her all of those things. And then he's going to say, I'll tell you what, you just meet me, and we'll talk face to face, and I will help you work your problems out. Parents are really not that bad of folks. We're actually really trying to watch out for your best interest. And that mother that you saw at the very beginning, you heard her say, I have 2 or 3 other kids, and she said, they're not going to have a life because I'm going to watch over their back the whole time, because if mom and dad, and I'm not blaming them, but if they had saw what their kids were putting out there, if they had a look at who she was having a conversation with, she may still be alive today. Understand this, the word grooming, he says, and I watched and read several things yesterday, that is just the normal thing for them to do, is to tell you what you want to hear in order to reach their ultimate goal, which, just like this guy, was to rape this young lady, knowing that he was going to end up killing her. You have to be cautious. Let me just do this. Let me just kind of link this to us locally. All right, we had, and I don't believe they're a student here, but if they were to be, we're not going to call names, and we're not going to do that. There's a young lady whose mom came to the police department 2 or 3 months ago. She came into my office and she said, hey, I've got a problem and I need the police department's help. And I said, we'll be happy to help you. She shows me her daughter's phone. And she was in a conversation with, her daughter at that time was a very young teenager. She was in a conversation with a boy who was claiming to be, I don't want to mess this up, who was claiming to be 16 years old. That's what he claimed to be. And the conversation that mom read was completely inappropriate for a very young teenager, age of 13, to be having with a 16-year-old boy. And mom says, I'm kind of scared, because if you read all the text messages, they're talking about meeting, they're talking about running away, they're talking about things they should not be having a conversation about. And she said, I just need some help because I'm scared. So we said, well, with your permission, we will become your daughter on her own telephone. We will follow through with the meeting, so to speak. But when he believes he's going to show up to meet a 13-year-old, he's going to meet one of us. He's going to meet a police officer, which is not what he expected. And I'm going to give you just a few details about that, not anything graphic or those kind of things, but just some things you need to know. Understand this. The story you just read that we talked about didn't happen here. This is something that happened in the city of Coleman. The conversation started out on Facebook. From Facebook, it ended up text message, and then mom finds it and brings it to us. He talks to her about having a relationship that, again, a 13 and 16-year-old shouldn't be talking about. They made the agreement to meet. Her parents were supposed to be out of town. They made the agreement to meet at Neesmith Park, right in behind West Elementary School, where some of you went to school. Right in behind West Elementary School. And she says this, my parents are out of town, and he says, I will come and pick you up. And I will meet you, and they set the time to meet. And again, now, he thinks he's talking, at this time, he thinks he's talking to a 13-year-old girl, but he's talking to us. He's talking to, I was there, and a couple of investigators were there. So he's thinking he's talking to us. And listen, he says things to her through text messaging that it was really a good thing that some time passed before we got to meet him face to face, because I'm just going to tell you, I try to be a patient person. I try to do the right thing. But had I have been able to lay my hands on him at that point, I may be looking for a job today. I'm not really sure, because I just don't think I could have stood it, because I have children. And if somebody talks to my kids that way, it'll be a bad day for either me or somebody else, but it just won't go over that well. So they have that conversation, right? Totally inappropriate. He says, show up, meet there, you and I will leave, we'll never come back, and everything's going to be fine, we're going to live happily ever after. We make the arrangement to meet right there in the parking lot where you're standing there and you're looking at D. Smith swimming pool, or you're looking over, you look at the playground at West Elementary School. That's where he made the agreement to meet. When he pulls up, he is actually a 23-year-old. Now remember, how old is she? She's 13. He's 23. He realizes she's 13. You understand the problem? There is like he's a sick individual, right? Well, to his surprise, he didn't meet a 13-year-old girl. He met members of the Coleman Police Department. We let him know pretty quickly that he wasn't from Coleman, and we didn't really want him back in Coleman, but we borrowed him for a little while and let him hang out at the county jail for a little bit. But in his car, now I'm just going to be honest, okay? And I hope if you get mad at me, well, get over it. You know, it'll be all right. You can get mad at me, and I kind of have a way of getting over it. But so if this offends you, I don't mean to. Inside his car, we found a box of condoms, and we found duct tape. Now, understand something. A 23-year-old man, we found the receipt where he left Athens, where he was from. He made the stop at a store and bought those two items. Now, you have to think, he's thinking like the 30-something-year-old guy is thinking, I believe. I mean, because the duct tape part of it, that's not normal, all right? That's abnormal. And what I believe is going to happen, what we believe but we can't prove, what we believe was going to happen was his intentions it was obvious what some of his intentions were, but the duct tape part of it, you understand, you have to go back and look at this young lady that we talked about at the beginning. It says her hands were bound and her feet were bound. In other words, her hands and feet were tied up. This young man brought, right here in the heart of the city of Coleman, duct tape to meet what he thought, again, was a 13-year-old girl. So understand this. That is a conversation that started out on social media. In social media, a good thing? It can be, because I think you can see if you follow it. I think we keep up. I know I do. I keep up probably more often than I should. I follow Andrew Winfrey's progress on a regular basis. And I keep up with Bo and Holly and Andrew. So social media can be a very, very good thing. You watch it if you follow Dr. Harris, you follow your superintendent. When y'all do something, she posts a picture. Dr. Bolden does the same thing. Ms. Hall does the it can be a positive thing. But at the same time, here is two, one that happened away, one that happened here local, that it got misused. And listen, two things that those things have in common. Some young lady, and I'm not, some young lady in both of these instances made a decision to have a conversation with someone she did not know. And both of these turn out to be someone who they were not. They were telling, I'm 16, they're 30 some odd, or they're 23 years old. So understand it can be a dangerous thing. And then the last video we're going to watch, and then I have one more thing to talk about. This is where how we have become, I think one thing social media does is this. It doesn't really teach us to face our problems like we should face them. If somebody has a problem with me, I really do like for you to just come see me. Just to come sit down and let's have a conversation. I'm really not much into you sending me a text message and telling me how much you don't like me or the complaint that you have with me. Just come and see me and let's sit down and talk. This video, the last one we'll watch, is about two minutes long. And this is where an argument between two young ladies went bad wrong, and you'll see what happens here. So watch this video, then I'll come back up and finish.
is Rachel Wade's home, Lowell Correctional Institution for Women. Her 21st birthday was behind bars, and so will the next 20.
Do you feel like your story can maybe help another girl out there?
I think if they'd listen, but then again, when I was younger, I didn't listen to anything.
Her story is about teenage love, but this relationship was played out in text messages and social media websites. A war of words that ended with a deadly street-side showdown.
You understand that you have the right to remain silent?
One night in April of 2009, a year of internet battle ended in 5 seconds when Wade, 19 at the time, stabbed and killed her romantic rival, 18-year-old Sarah Ludeman.
I always try to think of what I could have done differently, and I could have tried to approach her and tell her, you know, it's not me, it's not you, it's him.
Both girls were engaged in a vicious internet battle over another teenager, Joshua.
None of us.
Wade explains it was easy for both girls to fight over him, a fight where fists weren't needed.
You can hide behind technology, you can be a whole other person, and it's almost like you can threaten somebody or you can say whatever you want and possibly scare them, and you don't have to face them at that moment.
To me, they were both children, and their lives did not need to be devastated or destroyed.
Jay Hebert, Wade's attorney, has been deeply affected by this case.
In my practice, I've never had a case that's hit home harder.
He has been a lawyer for 21 years, but his most important job is being a father, and says not only was his client's life changed forever, so was his.
You know, if there's any good that can come out of this tragic situation, hopefully we will help educate other parents about the dangers and the risks.
He's putting his words to action. He prepares not only legal briefs, but bullet point presentations on cyber dangers.
When kids text the number 9, that means that parents are watching.
Spending his own time not only in a courtroom, but a classroom. Hebert has visited numerous schools and plans on visiting many more.
Our children are the Christopher Columbuses of the new world.
A world where the internet is the ruler.
And why should we all feel affected by it?
Well, I think as parents, we have to take responsibility for the world as we see it today. And that world is exploding.
When Hebert visits schools, he not only speaks to the children, he holds a separate presentation for their parents, teaches them to monitor their kids' cell phones, suggests charging all computer equipment in their bedrooms so kids don't have access to them all night long. He wants to make a difference.
There's nothing we can do to turn back the clock, nothing we can do to change what's happened, but hopefully we can help educate, with Rachel's help, other parents and keep something like this from happening to another set of parents.
I luckily still get to see my parents. It could have been me. And I can't say, like I said, I'd take it back if I could, but I'm still here and I'm gonna get out one day. So, I mean, I try to stay as positive as I can.
And Wade says, behind bars, with her attorney's help, she hopes someone will listen and not end up like her, a young woman who will grow up in prison. Serena Kazan, ABC Action News.
Now, I can tell you already 2 things just from your reaction. You think the guy was worth dying over? He was a rough-looking character, wasn't he? Bless his heart. And he still has to live with himself. Every day he has to wake up and think, wow. But, you know, I guess everybody needs somebody to fight over them. Second thing I know you're not going to agree with, it said there that it encouraged, I know you're not going to like this, because I have kids. It encouraged your parents to charge the stuff in their room so you don't have access to it all night. Here's what I'm going to say. Here's where I'll say I'm a realist, okay? That popularity would just be about as popular as the noise ordinance. You know, it's just not that popular. Just as popular as the loud muffler law. It's just not that popular. So here's what I would ask you to do. Here's what I would say you should do, okay? I would say at least, at minimum, you should have somebody that will just use this term. You should have an accountability person. You should have a friend that you can let them see it. And listen, because there's no way, any story we've looked at today, that it started out with that goal in mind. And so I know that it is really unpopular to say, let your parents read your text messages. I mean, I know that's really unpopular, but listen, if you really could have a friend you could link up with and just say, hey, I just want you to kind of know what's going on. Because know this, if somebody had have just said, wake up just a minute to the three things that were going on here, from the one that just died, I mean the one that just got stabbed, surely one of them had a friend that could have said, do you realize how stupid you're being? You're talking about getting a knife and going to kill somebody over that guy. Somebody could have at least showed a picture of him and said, look, you can't die. You can't murder somebody over somebody that looks like this. There's plenty of ugly folks out there that you can have and not die or murder someone over that guy. Because if that's the best you can do, bless you. You know, you've got problems. Bigger problems than now she's got really big problems. The last thing I'm going to say about social media is this. Know this. It will follow you. The pictures you have right now will follow you for the rest of your life. When at the Coleman Police Department, and we are behind times in some ways, if we're going to hire someone, one of the things we're going to do is get on Facebook. And we're going to look them up. And we're going to ask them, if we're not friends with them, to let us see their Facebook. And if they don't want to, it's okay, but we don't have to hire them either. And we're going to look at their pictures. Understand this, the bad choice in photographs that you put out today will be there when you go to apply for a job somewhere. And let me give you an example. And this is embarrassing on a police department, not ours. Thank the Lord. In the state of Georgia, and I'm sure Georgia's a good state, and we have, I've already told you, we have some non-desirables that work at the Coleman Police Department, but not this non-desirable yet, is in Georgia, a state trooper decides one night to have a get-together at his house and invite a few friends over. And they had made a decision to have a few too many things to drink. And in that process, alcohol, you've heard your whole life, and guns don't mix, right? Well, he decides that it would be a good idea to go get, in the state of Georgia, they wear those state trooper hats like ours do. They wear those campaign hats or whatever you call them. He thinks it'd be a cute photograph, or not cute, but a nice photograph to go get that hat, set it on his friend's head who's had too much to drink, and squat down next to him and take out the gun that the state of Georgia has issued him, which they've taken up now, and take a photograph with his gun and his trooper hat on his friend, and both of them had consumed way too much alcohol. Well, he is no longer employed in the state of Georgia because they said, you took our hat, you took our gun, you photographed it, and you put it on the internet for anybody to look at. So they fired him. In that case, he appealed that. It went to their state Supreme Court, and they said, listen, you can't, anything you put together with who it is, if you're representing something and you photograph it, and then you put it for anybody to look at, then you're representing the state of Georgia. Here's what I would say, and I don't know, I haven't gone over your rules, other than what I'm supposed to go over to sign for my own children, so I don't know what it would be here, but my thing is this: if you play football for Coleman, or if you play baseball for Coleman, or you're in the band for Coleman, and you take a photograph on a trip sponsored by or wearing something that connects you back to Coleman High School, in my opinion, they can hold you accountable for that. You understand what I'm saying? And then many of you aspire to be doctors or nurses or lawyers or whatever it is that you want to be, or teachers or whatever you want to be. But listen, the school is making a mistake if they don't say, hey, when you come to the city of Coleman school system to apply for a job, let's just pull up your Facebook. And let's just go back to when you were you first entered college, and let's look at the pictures that you posted. Let's go back to your senior trip in high school, and let's look at the pictures that you posted. Because listen, they're out there, and you know you only have to go up to the top and say save picture. So any of the crazy pictures that you put out there, all I have to do is save them in their mind forever. And so you come to us wanting for a job, or you go to apply for a college, and then they say, well, you know what, you have a really nice resume, you did well on your test, your grade point average was great, but explain this picture for me. and pictures don't necessarily lie. So all I would say is this. You be careful on what you put on there, okay? Be careful of what you post, because people have been arrested over what's on Facebook. You know, it's not really a good idea. Very last story, and I'll be finished. Very last story, someone put on Facebook that they were having a successful marijuana grow inside their apartment. Now listen, I've been around in this job for 23 or 22 or so years, but somebody who just got hired could figure out that, hey, if this guy says he's having the crop is ripe, or whatever the right term is, we can read, you know, and we can see. And all you do is go right there and you clicked on him, we clicked on his address, and we said, well, let's just go visit. And so we went and visited. And he don't own that apartment anymore. And he don't have, I think it was just around $6,000 cash he had on him, that now the Coleman Police Department owns. Because he did something stupid. He posted a successful marijuana grow on Facebook, and we went and visited him, and now we own $5,000 that we didn't own, and he don't have that successful crop that he thought he once had. So in closing, let me just say this. Be smart. In my opinion, God gave you common sense. Use it. All right? Don't meet somebody that you don't know. There's bad people that live out there. There's close to 200 or whatever the number I told you, 170 or whatever it is, 165 registered sex offenders. And listen, most of them are complete, I'll just tell you, are complete and total losers. They don't care anything about you. They don't care anything about your future. So stay away from those folks. Know what you put there stays there forever. Dr. Bolden, wherever you are, thank you for letting me come. Thank y'all for being kind to me, and I'll be back anytime you like.
Thank you, Assistant Chief Green. And thank you, students, for your attention. That was a lot of good information for us today.